I have to say one more thing if I can.
Go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us today. I am extremely proud to introduce our CPRS president, Tom Hellman. Currently, Tom is serving as the 75th president of the California Park and Recreation Society and is the Recreation and Community Services Manager with the City of Folsom, where he manages aquatics, sports, community services, art services, and project management for the Johnny Cash Trail Art Experience. Previously, Tom served as recreation supervisor for 17 years with oversight of aquatics, where he was recognized in 2011 by the Aquatics International magazine as a next generation top 25 professional. He received the 2011 CPRS Citation of Merit Award, is a past president of the aquatics section, and is a certified lifeguard since 1993. He possessed an ARC lifeguard instructor and instructor trainer certificate and AFO during this time as well. Ladies and gentlemen, Tom Hellman.
Well, good morning. Hello, Liddy. Hello, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here this morning and welcome you all to this part one series as we break to collaborate. So today is a great day and Thursday is going to be a great day as well. And so I want to just take an opportunity to welcome you all and to thank everybody for taking the time today to join us. This section is phenomenal, and it's been phenomenal since the birth of it. I took the liberty of doing my best graphic design of creating a background today, and what I wanted to highlight with you all is the powerful message that's been with this section for as long as I can know, probably from the beginning. And I'm sure there's some other people on this call that might be able to attest to it. But this, advocating for aquatic safety and uniting aquatic professionals message. Today is a great example of how you all unite. It's a great example of how you all collaborate. And it's a great example of how we are all better together because we are here today. And this is a great platform for you to get some great information, to listen to some phenomenal people, share their experiences, share their knowledge with you. So in turn, you can go back and help make our communities better, to make them safer, to make them stronger. The advocating piece, this section has been advocating since day one. And you continue to do that, whether that's through legislative initiatives or through the message of today, which is being awareness of National Water Safety Month and the importance of learning to swim and barriers around pools and talking to children and talking to parents about how to be safe in and around our water environment. So, this section is positioned with great strength, with great awareness, with great professionals that together make us stronger, help advocate our position, help disseminate that message to others, and to make each other stronger as we do this, and to make, of course, our community safer in the way as we prepare for a summer season. So today you've got a phenomenal group of panel members to come in and have a lively discussion, to share their experiences. It's a privilege and an honor to see them all today. Zooming has become the new norm, and it is great to use this platform because we can all come together for a quick hour, have some people Zoom in from across the country and all over the state, and to have this great conversation. So I'm excited for this morning. I'm excited for this series. Congratulations, Liddy, Stephanie, the aquatic section, for putting this together. This is phenomenal. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you, Liddy. So thank you so very much.
All right, thank you, Tom. Stephanie, you want to go over chat room?
Yes. So we're going to make this as organic and free flowing as possible. If you guys have any questions for the panelists, just go ahead and pop them in the chat, please. And that way I'll make sure that Liddy gets them and we'll read them as time allows.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. So we're excited to really have some great discussions, and the experts that we have here today are going to be talking about some great topics, not only today, but on Thursday as well. Our goal is our learning outcomes for you guys, which is to have new strategies for preventative mindsets in facility preparation, how to keep your documentation current, correct, and consistent, how to better customize your services for preventative practice, how to practice advocating to non-aquatic management, and also to learn maybe some new strategies to introduce leadership skill sets out of the water. So without further ado, in our first series, we're excited to introduce you all to our panel of experts. First is Frank Carson, Director of El Cajon. Frank currently serves as the Director of Parks and Recreation for the City of El Cajon and as the President-elect on the State Board for California Parks and Recreation Society, CPRS. He completed a bachelor's degree in history from the University of California, San Diego, and a teaching credential in social studies and a post-baccalaureate certificate in instructional technology from San Diego State University. He also has a master's in recreation and tourism management from the California State University East Bay, Hayward. He served as regent for National Recreation and Park Association's Rates, Marketing and Revenue Sources Management School and currently serves as the co-chair for Parks Access with NRPA. Frank also serves as a professor at San Diego State University, teaching upper division hospitality, recreation and tourism courses. He has worked in management capacities for the cities of San Diego and Chula Vista and has nearly 30 years serving the parks and recreation profession. For aquatics specifically, Frank has been a Red Cross instructor trainer for the last 25 years and still serves as a lead volunteer for a WSI course over Memorial Day weekend, where they accept up to 60 WSI candidates. And for fun, Frank tried out for 10 beach lifeguard agencies from February to April in 2021, just to try and train for something during COVID. Everybody welcome Frank. Woo. All right.
Impressive, Frankie. Come a long way, boy.
All right, next is Julene R. Hefter. This MSOLQ and CPRP is the founder of Safety First Aquatics LLC. The company was developed to create safety one step at a time, whether it be through educational offerings or consulting purposes. Julene is also the executive director and CEO for the Association of Aquatic Professionals. She has served in a number of leadership positions with both state and national organizations, including being the chairperson for the NRPA 2005 National Aquatic Conference, chairperson of the National Aquatic Management School and National Aquatic Conference in 2007, In 2007, she was the president of the National Aquatic Council, chairperson of the Wisconsin Park and Recreation Association Recreation Section, and chairperson of the Southeast Park and Recreation Council, and vice chairperson of the Washington County Park and Open Space Technical Advisory Committee. Everybody welcome Julene. Sean DeRosa is one of the nation's leading experts in aquatic risk management. The owner of DeRosa Aquatic Consulting, Sean helps agencies minimize risks and improve safety through consulting services and high-quality education and training programs. Sean combines his training as a lawyer and his years of experience as the director of aquatics at Penn State University to provide litigation support services as an expert witness in a variety of pool and beach cases. His knowledge of the aquatics industry, combined with his experience as a consultant, attorney, and expert witness, help bring practical experience to all of his training programs. Welcome, Sean. And finally, he's well known. Jim Wheeler is internationally recognized as an expert speaker and author on aquatic operations, training, and risk management. Over the past 45 years, he has worked at lakes, rivers, ocean beaches, pools, and water parks. This diverse blend of aquatic experience has given him insight that has allowed for the development of training and educational programs that have moved beyond traditional aquatic thinking. Jim is currently the general manager for the Hayward Area Recreation Park District and has worked as an instructor, trainer, auditor, and accident investigator for Ellis & Associates, the National Aquatic Safety Company, and the American Red Cross and USA Swimming. Jim is also the owner of Total Aquatic Management and an aquatic safety and risk management firm, and the provider of the West Coast leading advanced lifeguard training program. Everybody welcome Jim. All right, my name is Liddy Gutfeld. I am the Vice President of the Aquatic Section, and with me today is Stephanie Molina, President of the Aquatic Section for CPRS, and we are excited to start this new DIP speaker series. It right now is planning to be a quarterly series that we will bring to you as we find more panel experts and we get more questions of what you want to hear about. We will add these into the mix. But for today, let's go ahead and get started. Sean, this first one is for you. Risk management has continuously evolved in aquatics. Now adding so many new restrictions and requirements to run facilities safely, what preventative strategies do you feel are needing to be implemented into the day-to-day functions of aquatics?
Oh, good morning, everyone. First, thanks for having me here. I have my coffee. I hope you guys all have yours as well. So that's a great question. You know, this year we've seen a lot of changes in aquatics, but I'd like to go back to basics and recommend that everyone really look at managing risks and aquatic safety specific to your facilities. And I think that starts with having an aquatic safety plan. You know, we've been around, pick your lifeguard training organization. They all have their own emergency action plans, emergency response plans, but really I'm saying, let's kick it up a notch. Let's have a full aquatic safety plan, which is really a detailed risk management plan for your specific facility. It'll include things such as policies and procedures, what to do in case of an accidental fecal release, chemical incidents, all the things that you need to have to meet some of the national standards, active shooter instructions, right? Things that we never really used to think about. But I think a good place to start with that is to just Google the aquatic safety plan template. They've got some through the Canadian Red Cross, through the Life Saving Society, New York State Health Department has a template that you can use, and it's a good way to get started with managing risks. I also would say that I think we should establish reasonably sized zones for lifeguard surveillance and then do that zone validation or those drops where you're actually testing before patrons enter the facility to make certain that you at least think you've got a good size and zone. And then most certainly while the facility is in use, just to make certain that lifeguards can see stuff. I would say train your staff. You know, training, we're all big on training, but I think that's important. I tell everyone, listen, write down everything that you think staff should know before the very first day they get into the guard stand. Well, guess what? There's your pre-service orientation outline right there. Then write down everything that you think you want to teach your team over the course of their employment. Well, there's this template or at least the outline for your in-service training, you know, your ongoing program. And I would say lastly, think about auditing. Whether you're doing red ball drops, mannequin drops, internal audits, I think are critical. They're required under various national standards, most certainly strongly recommended. And then I would say consider looking at an external audit as well, because you really want to dive deeper into those policies and procedures that you don't just get with a quick, you know, are your lifeguards in uniform? Are you using checklists, that sort of thing? So as we look at managing risks, let's just go back to basics. Let's kind of start anew, develop our plans and focus in on training and really make our facilities safe, and let's have fun while we do it.
I love it. You made some really good points there, Sean. Any links that you can provide, go ahead and shoot those over to me, and we will put them together for everybody who participated in today's session. So that way everybody has a place to start. You made great points there. And it seems that when we talk about strategies and policies and making sure that we have effective communication, whether it's from top to bottom or other way, we need them to be effective through effective communication. So Jim, this one's for you. As a general manager, top dog.
Hey, you're going to ask me questions? I just get to catch up with everybody.
So as one of the top dogs and a 40-year veteran in the field, what do you think that professionals can do to make sure our agency's decision makers understand the importance of aquatic preventative practice and why it's so important to invest in training?
Oh, well, thank you very much. It's great to see everyone. Thanks for having me. Before I start, I have to say, Brooke Walsh, I chased your ass for months in that dash challenge and you beat me. I was right behind you in the end. Good job. I don't even know. I was just chasing you the whole time. Anyway, it sucked. But you did great. Okay.
You were impressive doing it all swimming.
I did swim the whole thing. So here's the deal. Training and talking to decision makers. I recall when I was in the city of Oakland, I wanted to buy AEDs and they said, we can't afford AEDs. And I said, they're all trained to use AEDs. And when we have a heart attack and we don't have one, everyone's going to go like, why don't you have one? You were trained to use them. So they bought me AEDs in risk management. Problem with training is, you know, people think it costs too much, but if you do too little, an accident costs too much. So you have to kind of go in and just say, look, you know, we need to spend this money because it could be catastrophic if we don't and our staff screws up. I present statistics on drownings per 1,000 people, you know, and then you throw like, here's how many people come to our pool every year. So it's really critical to continue to beat the odds that we do this training. I think pointing out the standard of care. Hey, we need to do this in Taft because they're doing it in Hanford. They're doing it in Bakersfield. They're doing it north of the river. They're doing it all over. And we need to be at the same standard of care so that when they go and ask somebody from a neighboring agency, hey, what happened? Was it right? They can agree with us. And then, you know, finally, I think you just have to basically say we're training to course elements. You know, these are things they're taught. These are things they need to know. This is something that Sean's going to expect they know if he comes into work on the other side and or try to defend you. The problem is there's just never enough time. You never, ever, I've never met anyone who had enough time to do leisurely training and have training. So the bottom line for me is make it relevant, make it completely relevant. Kind of like Sean was saying, basic skills, second nature, you know, all the important stuff, the complex skills that deteriorate, the CPR, you know, I say backboarding. I don't know. I don't remember a lot of spinals lately since we started putting no diving on the side of the pool, right? But if you want to do backboarding, do it in deep water. And people go, why? They don't break their neck there because it's harder. All right, that's it.
Always adding the little challenge at the end. I love it. Thank you, Jim. Julene, since we're on the topic of talking maybe to some of our decision makers and making some decisions, I'm going to throw this one your way. What can we do as aquatic professionals to ensure that we are providing our supervisory team with the ability to be successful leaders and make strong decisions?
Well, first of all, again, like everybody else, thank you very much for having me today. I'm really excited to be involved in the process here and sharing some information. And one of the biggest things that I love talking about is leadership and trying to make sure that we are giving the tools to our team members to be successful. And my master's is a Master of Science in Organizational Leadership and Quality. And one of the best parts about that is really, it taught me what really we needed to understand how to make somebody and help somebody be a good leader. And it was all about servant leadership. And I think if we really look at that and take that basis of servant leadership and really serving our team members along with our community and from the top down, really, what can we do to be successful? And I think that's a big part that we have to make as leaders. That conscious decision that we are going to try and help everybody be as successful as possible. And later on, we're going to talk a little bit more about leadership, but it's all about the tools we give our supervisors to be successful. And part of those tools comes together with trying to be respected as a supervisor. And I do a whole entire presentation on being respected as a supervisor and respecting your team members. And I always really try to call people team members and not staff. Because they are, we're all part of a team. And if we all work together, we can be very successful. And some of those tips and hints that people need and that we can provide to our supervisors is just making sure that our expectations are really clear, as long as them having clear expectations, and that we're communicating those expectations. It's kind of like that phone game where you start and everybody whispers into somebody's ear, maybe a full sentence or a couple sentences. And if you got a handful of people in the room, by the time they're done whispering it, that message has changed so many different times. So we want to look at how we can really have that clear communication with our team members and making sure that they understand that we all have to respect each other. We're all there. We're there for one clear goal of ensuring safety and making sure that people walk into our facilities, have a good time, but also leave safely. So showing that respect to our supervisors and them in return showing that to their team members. We never want to talk down to our team members. We want to make sure that we're helping them be as successful as possible by giving them all the tools that they need. And a big part of that is really listening to their concerns, especially with what we've been going through this last year, and this upcoming summer is going to be full with a lot of challenges. So leaders are really going to have to learn how to lead and listen to the concerns of their other team members and maybe, work around some things for them and, get those staff members there. and just making sure that we're talking about to our team members about how they feel. You know, how are they feeling on a daily basis? Are they comfortable? Are they comfortable with enforcing rules and regulations and policies and procedures that might have? And then we're really big on working together. I mean, we really want to make sure that our entire team can work together to be successful, and just offering them guidance whenever they need it.
I love it. Thank you, Julene. I think, you know, when we talk about that engagement with our staff teams now more than ever, we have to just really take notice and really start looking at the emotional capacity and the mental capacity of what our aquatic professionals are going through, especially coming out of COVID. We have had to really hone in on that emotional intelligence and engagement, right? So since we're on this aquatic leadership conversation, Frank, you have been one of the most innovative leaders in California throughout this pandemic, and especially with your staff and community engagement. So what are some best practices that others can research or implement in their agencies to allow for that new normal to start?
I think what we've definitely been practicing and looking at specifically in aquatics, and what I've had our aquatic staff, our full-time staff look at, is give us at least 6 scenarios of what our reopening would look like and write those out, get those on paper. So when it's time to actually implement one, we actually have it on paper. So right now, when we get the word from the state governor saying June 15th is the day, we are basically looking at, okay, what are our group swim lessons going to look like? We were recently tasked in El Cajon by our city council, gave us $700,000 from ARP, going, okay, this summer you're going to spend $700,000 and it's $1 per class. I convinced them that let me do the swim classes at $5 per class. Just my experience in, if I gave a $1 class, I'd have maybe a honeymoon of show up one day and not show up, but a $5 investment might be a little bit more. We're even going to bus kids up from different school locations to the pool now with that, just because our council wants to reinvest in the community, and part of how they're viewing the ARP funds, how they're interpreting it, is reinvesting in the community, getting them activated into doing things like that. So I'm pretty lucky in that sense. I know that before we start this conversation, we're talking about recruitment and really having a difficult time with lifeguards. And I'm going to backtrack to the late 90s. Remember, with the .com boom, and it was really hard to get lifeguards. This is when I was working for City of San Diego, teaching the Winter Aquatic Vocational Education, or WAVE program. And that class usually had 35, because it was basically a free class. It was like $30, if that, and you get a waiver. And we were down to like 10 people taking the class. Red Cross teamed up with Baywatch. They're doing lifeguard wanted promos, all these funny things to get people. And I kind of look at the economy at the same time then and now, where younger people are looking at other financial type of jobs that are better paying, and how can we as agencies become more inventive to get them to come work for us still. So one thing, like when you read my bio, I did 10 beach lifeguard tryouts during this from February, April this year. And I did that for a number of reasons. One was also look at their recruitment process. And I'll say this, big props to City of Huntington Beach lifeguards. That was amazing how they did it. I'm not going to ding any of the agencies, but the agencies that did do a poor job, and I'd say more than half, I felt like did a really poor job. And it taught me a lot about our own recruitment. We've implemented changes since then. And I gave feedback not only to our HR department, but also to our own staff, how we do recruitment. So we've not only made the application process online that we had before, but we streamlined it. We worked with our police department, and we're getting our staff trained on how to do live scan and to do live scan. So they're getting certified to do that. They don't have to go through PD to do that anymore. I've gotten the HR director that if there is a snafu with TB testing, that we get a waiver, a temporary waiver with TB testing, because that's a national standard now. A lot of agencies are doing waivers with TB testing. In the state of California, if you don't know, because I know with some out-of-state people, it's required to get TB tested. And now we're actually waiving that temporary requirement to get them on board, because it takes about 6 weeks to do that. But in reality, our business as usual is not going to be that. We're going to have to be inventive on how we not only do recruitment, but how we offer our programs and services, because it's a new day. It's a new age, and we have to jump on board. Just like the .com boom time period, this is the same thing with the economy, and get ready for it.
Thank you, Frank. Talking about lifeguard shortages, Julene and I were talking right before we got started as well. Julene, do you want to tell the group about the segment and what we can do with that link later on?
Sure. Well, I forwarded you the link, but on actually and now I can't even remember the name of the show because I'm thinking about something else. But was it Today Show?
Yeah.
Yep. So the Today Show this morning actually had a segment on the shortage of lifeguards throughout the United States, and that everybody is basically having a shortage of lifeguards, and what they're doing and the challenges they're seeing and how they're trying to overcome those things, from bonuses, from if you currently work at a site and you can get someone else to apply and then they actually get hired, you might get $100 bonus. Getting all your training paid for. I mean, we're seeing a lot of increases in the amount of hourly rate, the wages that people are paying hourly. They've gone up exponentially. And we're just seeing a lot of things that people are going to have to be very creative on how to get staff. I mean, we're seeing a lot of that going on in every industry, but especially aquatics right now. So it was actually highlighted, and there was some good information that was shared. So I shared the link, so you should be able to send that out.
Excellent. We'll get that posted. So Julian, I'm going to stick with you real quick since we're talking still about leadership. I don't want to move on too quickly, but why is it important to ensure that you are being a leader and not just a manager?
I think a big thing people don't realize is that there's a big difference, and a very big difference between leadership and management. It's really kind of often overlooked, is that leadership always involves leading a group of people, whereas management need only be concerned with the responsibility for things. So potentially scheduling, staffing, ordering equipment, supplies, for example. And there's a big difference between a manager and that true leader. Leaders create that vision, while managers just create kind of goals for people. The leaders are change agents, while managers maintain the status quo. Leaders are trying to be unique, while managers seem to typically copy what has been done in the past because it was the easiest thing. Leaders take risks, while managers kind of just control risk and do things on that day-to-day basis. Leaders are really in it for the long haul, really promoting and investing their time into their team members, while managers kind of think more shorter term. Leaders really are trying to grow personally and become better, and really, really support those team members that they have, whereas those managers kind of just rely on things that are existing. It's worked in the past. Why do we have to do it again? Those great leaders really look at building relationships with people. And if you think about now, a lot of these people on this call, and a lot of you may know each other, but how do we build those relationships? Those networking relationships. I've known Jim Wheeler and Sean DeRosa for many, many, many years. And because of that, relationship and those relationships we've built, I've been able to network or learn additional things or find additional information that I may not have had without knowing them. Leaders really coach people to be successful and give everybody the tools that they need to be successful. While managers just kind of direct, oh, I need you to do this. I need you to do that. And those leaders really want that input from people. It's really important that great leaders promote their team members. It's not about me as a leader. It's about how successful my team members can be. And that's what makes a good leader. You as a leader want your team to be successful. We want them to come back. We want them to feel good about themselves. And we want them to develop themselves as leaders. So we don't have to be that leader that uses a title or tells people I'm in charge, because it's not about that. We want everybody to respect each other. We want, as a good leader, to lead by example. We want to provide the tools that our team members need, and we want to respect them. But one of the biggest things that I tell people in leadership are thank the people that are involved. If you all think about the last time you were really thanked for being there, or all the hard work that you do, because we all know aquatics professionals don't get the respect that they really deserve, because people think it's an easy job. And it's one of the most difficult jobs that any of us could ever do. And that's what makes a true leader, where you understand that and you supply those tools that your team members need to be successful.
I love it. I love it. Yeah. So everybody, when you get off this call, we do this a lot on our team, is we just, do basic quick high fives and quick thank yous, but just, reach out to 3 people that you haven't talked to in a hot minute and thank them for the work that they're doing. All right, we're going to move on to some litigation stuff. Sean, I'm going to give this one to you. Jim, you're probably going to have a piece to say in this as well. So Sean, good documentation can be the lifesaver in a courtroom or during litigation. What can you tell us about some not so great practices that you have seen, and how aquatic professionals can make some simple changes to ensure that documentation is done correctly?
Wow, I could go on forever on some of the scary things I've seen, right?
Give us your top one.
Right? Like, gosh, I don't know where to start. Some of them I've seen with my own team at some point or another. I would say from a documentation standpoint, we've all heard the old adage, if it wasn't documented, it wasn't done. And to some extent, there's a lot of truth to that. But I think as we look just from the litigation standpoint, and I'm going to try to move away from litigation as well at the same time, but from a litigation standpoint, your paperwork, your documentation is critical from a defense standpoint. It's very hard to come in. Jim and Julene, who have done a lot of expert witness work as well, will say it's hard to defend a group when they don't have routine documentation. Like when it looks like an agency is trying to hide something because they're not documenting, that never looks good, right? So I think as we look at documentation, some of the mistakes that I see relate to common everyday occurrences or standards that we should be upholding. For example, we know that we should be doing in-service training. We know that at a national level, the standard of care is about 4 hours per month at a minimum of in-service training. And we've learned a lot about in-services over the years. Back when a lot of us were lifeguarding, in the early 80s or whenever, we didn't really focus so much on in-service. We went through that original training program. For many of us, it was advanced life-saving. Some of you might have had the green book, Jim, I don't know. But the training calendar is important. Like, we want to plan it out. It shouldn't be this random rainy day thing, which is what we used to do back in the day. We need to have a plan. We want to know what we're going to train over the course of the season, over the course of the year, and document all of that training. That means having lesson plans. None of us like to do lesson plans, I would imagine, but that's what we teach everyone in our WSI classes, right? We tell them, do a block plan, outline your whole Learn to Swim program, then do individual lesson plans. What are the goals for that lesson? And, saving those in-service lessons so that you can use them down the road is really helpful. And we'll talk a little bit about, how to keep in-services more engaging, I hope. But I think it's important that we do that and that our in-services are properly documented. Oftentimes I went into this one audit of a facility where this was in probably early July. They had all of their in-service training documented all the way through August. And I thought, well, wait a second, how is that possible? We're in July. How do you have next month's in-service already documented? So, we have to do something more than just sign a sheet. Part of that means maybe taking a quiz, doing workshops, something that demonstrates that your lifeguards have learned the material, not that you presented it, not that they signed in and were physically present, but they actually grasped what you were teaching them. And that's why I like quizzes. I like worksheets, save them on file. You might be able to digitize them in some way. But I think, as you look at documentation, it's really about changing the culture of your agency, I would say, like moving away from documentation as an added task to documentation is like an integral part of what you do. You're going to collect data points on a wide variety of topics, how many splashes you have that day. In other words, how many people have come for a swim? What were your frequent rescues? What were your assists? All of the data points that you're collecting via documentation will help guide your decision-making process when your busy times are. The in-services, how many of us do in-services where we're focusing on like high fidelity emergency action plan, scenario-based rescues, but at the end we're like, all right, good job, let's debrief, which you need to debrief. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's where the learning comes from, not just doing the skill, but talking about what went well, what you could do different later. But how does it fall apart? Well, how often do we say, all right, now go write your report about what you just did. Write the incident report. And now let's analyze together as a group what that team that just did the rescue wrote on their report. Like any skill, like when you provide staff a big box to explain what they did, like open-end narrative, like that's very dangerous because you don't know what they're going to say. And unless they have practice writing in full sentences, not in text speak, right, and actually documenting exactly what they did, they don't really learn that. So I would say, go back and create a culture where documentation isn't the dirty word, isn't the afterthought, but it's just part of what you do. And it's what you as a leader and as a manager will use to guide your decisions so that you don't end up in litigation.
Great. You said the big C word, and this is Jim's favorite word right now. So Jim, culture plays a huge role in the workplace when it comes to the success of your team. How can aquatic professionals, and I'm going to even add all recreation professionals really, understand how to better learn culture and how to change it? And when they do start to change it, how long does it typically take and what are they in for?
Okay, well, that's a big question.
You're welcome.
So first, I want to start with culture. As a guy with a biology degree, culture is what grows in a petri dish, and what you put in that petri dish determines how well it grows, right? And so when I laugh about culture, like culture's bacteria, but the culture you set. My first thing to Sean is what's your training philosophy, right? Like you need to know what your training philosophy is. That's important. The other thing is my quick question that you can answer in the chat is, where did 4 hours a month come from? What's that based on? Does anybody remember when that got dropped on us? It was based on something. So that's a question for you. Julian, you talked about playing telephone. Has anybody watched Ellen DeGeneres' Game of Games with the big ears and the thing? Oh my gosh, it's the most hilarious game of telephone on earth. You have to watch that show. And then really quick, Sean, my first case ever, I went up, no training records, no training documentation. The lifeguard in the chair was not CPR certified. It had expired. And there was 3 corrections from a health department report. They never did. And I just looked at him and I said, we're trying to defend a really poor operator and it just won't work. So all this documentation is critical because you have to be able to defend that your goal is to show that you're a good aquatic operator, and then shit just happens, right? Like you have an accident, because that's what happens. So making sure your ducks are in a row so you can go back and defend it is huge. Lastly, Jolene, the last year we ever did the National Aquatic Management School, I did a survey on the lifeguard shortage, 128 agencies nationwide. We have had lifeguard shortages about every 5 years my entire career. And what I learned is the harder you work, the easier it is. And so if you have a lifeguard shortage problem, the number one thing was nobody knew what in and out and what the stores at the mall paid. You have to know what they pay. And then the other one that we learned is just build your own. Build your own, man. Take the swim team kid, put him in junior guards, get him from junior guards onto the deck. Stacy Thomas, you were talking about your intern program, your aquatic interns. Build your own. So much easier. Find the kids that like to be in the water and just keep them engaged while you do that. Okay, culture. Oh my gosh. Goals and standards equal desired outcomes, and that builds your culture. So these are my goals and standards. This is where I desire. That's what my culture is going to try to be, right? But there's so many cultural factors at the pool, right? Work ethic, customer service, safety, honesty, effort, respect. These are all critical parts of culture. In my new role, the first thing I did is say honesty, effort, respect, and empathy are the tenets by which we'll run our organization. Everyone will give their best effort. Everyone will be respectful. I did training all day Sunday for a group of senior managers, 18 of them from an aquatic facility. And we spent a lot of time talking about just how to have them all get along and the role that they emulate, and that, don't ever argue in front of staff, and they smell weakness and all those things, that they understand. But I think that your real question was, how long would it take you to change an aquatic culture? I'm going to use my good friend, Stacy Thomas, because she just inherited a system that I'm very well aware of. And so here's what happens. I got hired by the city of Oakland in May. I needed 85 lifeguards in May because I had 7 pools to run, and 2 pools had just walked out the summer before. They all quit. So I went to PE classes all over Oakland at the high schools, and I found kids that could swim 4 laps and said, if you can swim 12, I'll come train you to be a lifeguard. You'll make this much this summer. We found those kids. But the first summer, so how long does it take? The first summer, you take everyone back because you kind of need them all. You don't really know them. And so they all come back. The second summer, you cut all the dead meat. You cut anybody who doesn't get along, doesn't agree, pushes back, whatever. And then you take the marginals. And the third summer, they're yours. And you could ask Cortez Jordan in the city of West Hollywood. He took over a very established aquatic system with 2 or 3 permanent lifeguards that work year-round full-time, benefited lifeguards. And the culture, he came in and they looked at him like, who's this young guy, you know, whatever. And Victor and the guys I knew there forever. And I told him, Cortez, it's going to take you 3 years to turn it around. You just trust me. Third summer, we came back, did training. He's like, oh my God, you're right. The staff was completely different. So it takes time to change culture. You have to be respectful of what's there. You have to teach people what they should become and what they could become and what your standards and expectations are. And then, of course, all the leadership stuff Julian talked about. Lead by example, you know, be organized, all those kind of things. But the real question is 3 years. And the bottom line is you need to set a tone for the culture that you know as an aquatic professional will make sure your pool and your community is safe.
I love it. Thank you, Jim. All right, Frank, this next one is yours. Aquatics was your starting block. See what I did there? But you have moved up through the ranks of local government and are now sitting as director. What are some points of expertise that you can give to our aquatic professionals in regards to professionalism, entitlement, and preparedness?
So for professionalism, I would definitely say be involved with every aspect of your aquatic facility, not only beyond that, but within your department and the agency you work with. Be involved. Don't just get stuck in your own little pigeonhole yourself, because a lot of people like to put you in that pigeonhole if you're in aquatics, first of all. So get outside your scope. I talk to a lot of aquatic professionals that just call me, hey, how can I branch out? And I tell them, you know what, if you have that moment with your director, say, I'd like to learn about parks sometime. If there's a special project you'd like me to work on or something, let me do that. Just to broaden your scope a little bit. If you want that, your director needs to hear it from you. They're not just going to assume this is something you want. You need to actually be vocal and be your own advocate, so to speak. I would definitely say also in regards to professionalism, it's not always easy. In aquatic facilities, come August, I do remember always being burned out. And something for me as a director is I've tried to create August ambush where we go out and praise staff and give them goodies and recognize all that they do, because I know you come August, you get pretty burned out on every day, the grind, knocking it out, swim lessons, lifeguarding, the heat, people not happy, you know, afternoon parents are angrier than morning parents, all of that. So just dealing with all that is an important thing, and recognizing that sometimes maybe you need a break. I know for me, I was definitely a guardian, so to speak, as a pool manager, and it was hard for me to even take a day off. I listening to Sean about trainings. We did trainings every Saturday and Sunday because I couldn't get all my staff together all at one time because they had to do working or other things. So I was one training Saturday, one training Sunday, and it was every weekend. We did in-service trainings every weekend during the summer, and it was hard for me to take that time off, but I recognized I need to take that time off just so I can be my best self when I'm here at work. When you said entitlement, I was like, whoa, wait a second. How do I answer that one? And I thought a lot about this answer, and I would say definitely, I know in aquatics, sometimes you feel like you get the short end of the stick. You get pigeonholed. Your pay sometimes is lower than your land-based counterparts. And you're like, wait a second, I had to do all this training to get certified. I actually have to physically be on stage every time I show up, and I'm getting paid less than people that sit at a front counter at a rec center. How is this fair? And a lot of it is, you know what, do your homework and become your own advocate again. Talk to your supervisors about, hey, look, I want to have equal pay treatment if pay is the issue. Some agencies that I've worked with and worked for, you have elected officials that don't see the importance of offering public swim lessons. They're like, isn't this kind of like a higher end thing to offer the swim lesson? And I always take that moment as a teachable moment for those elected officials of their own entitlement going, well, no, hold on. This is actually the leading cause of preventable death in many areas. And in our area, ages 1 to 14, this is the #1 leading cause of preventable death. So in essence, we're more important than homicide. And I'm stealing that statement from a counterpart, Mandy Gonzalez from City of San Diego, who always likes to bring that one up. But in essence, we're offering a public safety piece with swim lessons. We're not doing anything that is higher end or less than important than teaching a CPR class to the community. Swim lessons are important for community for the water safety purposes. I mean, we talked about preparedness, and you hear it from Jim and Sean talking about in-service trainings. I can't tell you how important that is. And that comes with the confidence level of your staff. I'll give you a quick example. It was definitely responding to a seizure victim that was a grand mal seizure. We did these trainings every weekend day in different scenarios, spinal, seizure, all of that. But right away, it was, they talk about having that aura, and my staff tell me, hey, this person's calling you over, and we knew this person. And he said, hey, I'm about to have a seizure. And this was a big guy, very big guy. And right away he had a seizure. I was not the lifeguard. I was just the pool manager coming out of the office, and I had to hop in the water without any rescue equipment, protect his head. That's all I did. But my staff automatically knew what to do because I had trained them to be ready without me. So yeah, I was the one that made contact, but my staff knew the whole system. I didn't have to guide them through anything. I was the guy in the water. They threw a rescue tube to, we pulled the victim out. But in reality, that was what told me, okay, all of our in-service trainings, that's what makes the big difference, is that they don't have to get worried or even think about it because it's so ingrained because of those in-service trainings. There you go, Lee.
Thank you, Frank. All right, we're going into our last round of questions for each of our panelists. Julene, if you can, give us 3 to 5 things that you feel are crucial that aquatic staff at any and all levels should know.
Okay, I'm going to first kind of pinpoint that I don't think these are just, I kind of thought a lot about this, and I don't think it's just for aquatic staff or staff. I think people in general, all of us, there's some things that we really should think about on a daily basis, how we interact with people, how we interact with our patrons, other team members, and how we really can be the best that we can be. And it's, because a lot of this ties into your team members and what you do on the job, but also in everyday life. And I think one of the biggest things for me is how to be a good listener. And I think that's a thing that everybody needs to work on. You need to know how to be a good listener, and you need to work on that, because I think it's one of the biggest things that we all have trouble with. Somebody comes up and they're upset about something, and they're right away, we sometimes can get defensive. So instead of trying to defend ourselves or the policies and procedures or what we're doing, kind of to take that step back and really see how we can listen and hear what they're actually saying, what they need from us. Maybe they just need to vent a little bit, and that kind of helps. Some of these other things I thought about, Jim mentioned too, but having empathy for others, really, really trying to be kind and caring, and really seeing what other people may be going through. And especially, I think we've seen that a lot. And I'll bring up this last year, everybody's going through something different. Everybody has had difficulty. So how can we really work with people to understand perhaps what they need from us? And if we're talking about our team members, what do they need to be successful? And we as leaders, really, and in everyday life, kind of be aware of what's going on around us. What's going on with our other team members, what's going on with our spouses, significant others, whatever it may be. So many people are dealing with things they've never had to deal with before. So, we are now kind of seeing, how our actions may affect other people. And that's kind of the next one, is really having foresight into, how our actions and what we do and what we say can affect everybody else. And, I'll say it seems this last year, we've seen a lot about attitudes from people that it's all about me. I don't care about anybody else. It's all about me. And, we have to change that. And people really need to know how to do that. And taking our team members aside and really letting them know that, our actions have reactions, and whatever we do can have a certain outcome. And what is that outcome that we want to come of it? And then really having that passion and commitment for what we're doing, and teaching our team members that what we do is so important. Everything that we do, and I'll say it, at our aquatic facilities, at our rec facilities, everything that we do, really can make a difference in somebody's lives. And I think that's one of the biggest things that I got out of being in aquatics for so many years, is that passion that all of us aquatic professionals have. And we say we're so passionate about everything. We're passionate about what we do. We're passionate about drowning prevention education. And Frank was just talking about swim lessons and how important those are. And we're passionate about really getting our message out there to our boards, our commissions, whoever we have to sell that to. But keep that passion, really pass it on to your team members, because passion is what's going to get us through things.
Thank you, Julian. I appreciate that. All right. So, Jim, I've had the honor of knowing you since I was 19 years old, and that was eons ago. You have taught me and many thousands of guards and aquatic professionals that you train to be present on and off the deck. Now more than ever, managers need to provide a presence of clarity, consistency, and confidence to their subordinate staff in order to create impact and learning moments. What would you, Jim, tell a manager who is dealing with a staff who might be feeling burnt out and on the brim of making mistakes that could be tragic? And then on the other end, what tips would you give to the staff who are frustrated, maybe with the lack of communication that's coming from the top down?
Yeah, I love being here and listening to these really bright people. So this is, I got to go back for half a second. This is a different leadership time. And I took charge of this agency with, 100 parks and bunches of facilities and my empathy is driving some people crazy. I have a person that works with me. She got a kid at home. She's in first grade. She can't distance learn. She's frustrated. She has to be there all the time. You're like, where is she? Why isn't she at work? I'm like, because she's got another set of problems that are more real than what we're dealing with here today at work, right? So the empathy and the change in leadership style that's been just needed during these drastic times. Every single employee is getting treated a little differently depending upon their situation, right? Just, still come to work or do your job. The funny thing, Julian, you were just saying, truth, justice, and the aquatic way. If you've ever seen that slide, it talks about the incredible impact we have on community, how much people need our services to learn to swim, to socialize in WaterX, to just all these life skills, leisure time, getaway, spend time with family, which is so important now, right? And this is really what we exist for, and making sure that the young people understand that. And then we roll that into the duty they have to protect people. This is why you motivate. And Lydia, when you're talking to me about, your question of how do you motivate people who are at the end and they're at the end of summer? Well, first we remind them of their duty to protect everybody. We talk about the 7-year-old factor or the 12-year-old factor. Parent rolls up, throws the kid out of the car, kid gives you $5, goes swimming, and guess what? At 5 o'clock, they expect to see their kid. And I don't scare people into being better lifeguards. I think horror stories are okay if you're talking about like a first aid scenario or something, but this is duty based. This is community. This is making them understand that everybody in that community is connected, right? 6 degrees of separation. Could be someone from your church, could be your little brother's best friend's sister you never met. Imagine the tragedy, right? So we just try to instill a sense of duty in them. The good leadership thing, it takes a ton of work. Like the pools that have the great leadership teams and the good senior guards and pool managers are the ones that have spent the time. You need to be dedicated and make time to mentor people. These leaders don't just come around. You have to mentor them. You have to develop them. You have to teach them how to make decisions. You have to just ask them to just make a decision, right? Any decision, I don't care. We'll fix it later if it's really bad, but learning that. I did a talk recently on resiliency in youth and what makes youth resilient in today's world. And one of the things is like the leading expert who was on the call with me, I thought I knew what I was talking about. Like always, this lady like slammed me, and she knew everything. And what she basically said is give people a chance to fail. Don't reach in and help them. Don't go do it for them. Let these leaders grow by giving them a chance to experience and fail. That's the only way they'll learn and get stronger and better, right? So for me, that was a really big lesson. But you know, when the staff starts feeling burnout, you got to go the extra mile to motivate them, treat them well, and appreciate them. The same endorphins that make you feel good, Brooke, when you're kicking my ass in the dash, are the same things that happen in people's brains when you tell them you appreciate them. The word appreciate has an incredible amount of power. And I tell people all the time, I really appreciate what you're doing. I know it wasn't easy, it was hard. Those conversations always go really well. People feel empowered and walked away. Just giving thanks and appreciating people is a big part of it, you know. Remind them to be a good team member. It's hard to be a good team member sometimes. Be a good team member, support each other, lift each other up. You all make each other's jobs easier when you work together. And to quote Mike Dobson, which kills me, none of us are as smart as all of us. It's a great quote from Mike, and I use it all the time, right? When people think they're the brightest in the room or something's going, I say, hold on, what do you think? What do you think? I pull people out of their shell to find out what they think, because that's how we make true decisions. The other thing I would say is embrace the constructively discontent. And you're like, huh? Constructively, you can be discontent as long as it's constructive. If you're just out there complaining about everything and unhappy, great. But if you're pointing out something that you think could be improved or is better or it's not right or I got, you know, and it's constructive, that's important. This diverse viewpoints that you put around the room in that senior guard team or your leadership team, that's critical to hear everybody, because those diverse viewpoints make you stronger. And when everyone's heard, they'll be, they'll be better and they'll be more engaged. And then I think the last two things was one, we keep coming back to empathy. You know, it's easy to judge. It's so easy to judge. It's so easy to look at why that kid's all burnt out at the end of the summer. But when you dig in and start peeling back the onion and find out maybe he's got a horrible home life, maybe he didn't make the first string on the soccer team and that's his life. Maybe, you know, he's getting bullied by other kids on staff you never realized. You have to have the empathy, and you can't judge. You got to try to solve and dig in and figure out what's wrong. And those personal conversations show appreciation and make life easier for you also, right? And then lastly, put them in charge. Put them in charge. You know, when I was years and years ago, I had 2 pool managers and 2 assistant pool managers. One ran lessons, one ran Lex swim, the other 2 ran the pool. And I had no other, and I had 11 people apply of the 85 kids on staff apply for those jobs. And I'm like, what am I going to do? Well, that's when we started teams. We cut everybody into 8 teams of 10. We made all those people who wanted to lead team leaders. We made them responsible for a segment of in-service training, a team event once a week. Each one was in charge, and we gave them chances to lead. And I think that really takes burnout. Give them a challenge. Give them a task challenge at the end of the summer that's hard or exciting or something that's a stretch. You know, it's like being on the beach and getting that tower that you never thought you deserved as a third-year guard. You know, now it's August and you're pumped, right? So just think about some of those things. I think that'll help.
I love it. I just texted my lead aquatic supervisor and said, now you know the reason I am the way I am. Hashtag the School of Gym.
Very kind of you.
All right. So Frank, to piggyback on some of Jim's previous comments, one of my favorite Frankisms is complain up and support down. Can you give us an example of when this has worked and how staff at all levels can create a safe space to vent professionally? Also, if possible, please give us some insight on perception from the executive management level when a staff issue does come to your desk.
Kind of meaty, but I'll give it a shot.
Just
to relate to aquatics, I will probably give you a situation with City of San Diego. When I was a pool manager there, I was firm with the complain up and support down thinking, not only with my lifeguards, but we also had 2 other pool managers at the same pool site. And our staff never knew that we had disagreements necessarily, or that there may be a personality conflict between one or the other of us. We were always very much in unison. We demonstrated strong leadership. And then I left for a year to go to Guatemala as a volunteer. When I came back, my staff had a come together like dinner, like kind of get together party. And all of them started complaining about how dysfunctional the new pool management team was, because they just talk smack to all the pool guards about each other. And that's really poor leadership right there. And I told them, look, it's the complain up, support down strategy right there, that your staff don't need to know if you are not getting along. That's none of their business. They need to see you united. And if they don't, then you're demonstrating to them that they don't need to be together in any cohesive work environment or emergency situations. So that's something that you want to establish very, very strongly with your coworkers, that look, no matter what, we need to be united with each other so our staff don't see us not getting along, so to speak. To go along with that question is creating a safe space so all staff can vent professionally. This is something where with each other, I think the one-on-ones are probably the best timing when you have people meet one-on-one. I get concerned, and I know, I think it was Jim that talked about poison staff earlier. Be careful with poison staff. Like if they're in a large group and they're kind of just becoming a virus and sharing their displeasure, it's important for people to vent. And I do recognize that. I think it's important for that, even if it's a counterpart, but it's one-on-one. It's more the group setting is when it kind of gets out of control, because ears, a lot of people hear it and then they interpret their own thing. But definitely having that one-on-one, and my staff know that, hey, if my door's open, you can come in and close it and you can tell me exactly how you feel. I need to hear it. And I try to explain to my staff, I need to know exactly how you feel about things. And if you don't like something, tell me, because
Really, that hanging moment. I'm dying to know what the next word is.
Oh, that was perfect. We'll give him a few more seconds to come back to us. Frank, come back.
That's a cliffhanger, huh?
oh, hey, I'm back. Hey. I was like, what just happened there? Your internet connection is stable. And
We lost you at because.
Dude, everybody's just leaning in, waiting.
Oh, that's awesome. Do you want to maybe give us the last 10 seconds of what you were saying, Frank? So we lost you about 2 seconds or 10 seconds.
So let me hit on a couple more things. Just bear with me. Sorry. I think with aquatics, I always say pick your moments, but with aquatics, you can't always pick your moment, because if safety is number one priority, then the conversation has to happen now. Sometimes you can't just pick your moment to have the best conversation. And oftentimes when I pick my moment, what I mean is if the person comes to me for feedback, that's the moment I'm going to pick and give them that feedback that they're looking for. But if it's safety, where it's a safety aspect, and Jim talked about AEDs, it's like, why haven't you checked the AED for the last 2 months? That's a conversation I need to have now. If I notice it, it needs to happen now. And that's just a safety conversation. Something that I definitely have been practicing just on my own self is that my city manager has given me the directive to give him more feedback. And I think Wheeler will like this feedback that I gave him recently, because he wants me to kind of hit him hard. And one thing that he likes to say often is love it, either in text message, email, in person. It's just love it, love it, love it, love it, love it. So Wheeler, and I think Jenny, you probably remember, maybe Tom, but back in WSI days, they used to teach 50 ways to say very good and have the form for it. And I still teach that. So I gave him the form at my last one-on-one with him. And I said, hey, I noticed you say love it a lot. Here's that 50 ways to say very good. I usually give this to swim instructors instead of saying very good, 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 good. And so he brings this to every staff meeting. He brings this now 50-person checklist. And he goes, okay, you're getting it now. And he goes, check, and he looks at me, got that one, Frank. So I don't know if that's feedback for me, but at least he's like playing with me a little bit on having that conversation, because he wanted that feedback from me. He said, sometimes I feel like you softball me. You don't tell me everything that I should know. And that's just a growth thing for me, is that maybe for my boss, he's willing to hear a little bit more difficult conversation and having that. And it's a little bit difficult for a director, because you know what, we're only as good as yesterday. I can be terminated at any time for no reason. So I have to pick my moments also of having those conversations, but this, I'm trying to build up to it. Your last question, insight, executive management, when staff issues come to your desk, these are usually like harassment issues or legal issues meaning they got arrested for DUI or they got arrested with brass knuckles in their back seat. Literally, it has happened. Or it's like this staff person's poisoning a lot of people. And sometimes I'll get that feedback from part-time staff and have to look into it. One thing that I do have, and I'll tell you that I hold very hard to, is that if there's a personality conflict between a full-time person and a part-time person, no matter what, the full-time person will win this argument with me. If a part-time person comes to me with an issue of personality conflict with a full-time person, I'm going to tell them, hey, look, what you're telling me is not against the law, and I'm going to choose the side of the full-time person if you're looking for me to choose sides. And that's the way how I always held to it, because I actually have part-time people that don't want a full-time job. They don't want to commit to that because they've been here for 20 plus years. And sometimes they do complain to me about new supervisors that come in, and I'll say, stop, you've had your opportunity. You chose not to do it. I'm going to side with them if this comes down to a personality conflict. No matter how valuable you are to me, you're not willing to actually make that full-time commitment like they are. And so I would recommend to anybody, if you have full-time versus part-time personality conflicts, really look at, okay, who is the most valued to me? This person that's been here 20 years part-time, who are very important, I'm not saying that, or someone that's actually committed a career to me. And that's why I hold true to that methodology.
Excellent. Thank you, Frank. All right, Sean, you are going to close us out before we move on to questions from the audience.
Pressure's on.
Attorney / closer. I like it.
Uh-oh. How you doing?
All right.
How you doing?
In-services are the way we train, and therefore one would assume that they should be organized the best way with the most innovative and new trends. However, many agencies find themselves in a rut, repeating the same in-service curriculum, guards getting bored, and nothing getting accomplished. If you can, please give us a list of musts and must nots for successful in-services.
Must get a new in-service leader if you have that problem, right? Like a lot of the in-services, like I get it, I've done it. And after a while, you get sick of doing the same sort of in-service time and time again. For us, it's a repeat, right? Like how many times are we going to teach this skill? Or for our team, sometimes it's not a repeat. Now you have those long haulers that have, been on your team for years. So they might start to see some overlap. But I think you put them in charge. I think Jim was saying that, like, take that person and say, all right, you're complaining about in-services, you're in a rut. Well, you do it now, right? You do that not in a pejorative way, but, in a way that provides some like guidance and coaching to help them succeed. And I do think it's important that you have fun in services. And for those of you that really know me, like I can be fun, but like, I'm also like super serious about some things. You have to know like when you can play and when you have to like drill down into like safety, like Frank was talking, that almost trumps everything. So I think some of our challenges with in-services is that we get bored running them. And we know that our team gets bored when we're bored. So if we can change how we view our in-service, like, are you even getting in the water? Like Jim will tell you, like, get wet, go swim with your team. Don't just stand there dry and like bark at them. Show them that you still got some game, right? You can do the skills that you're asking them to do, if you can. So I think we have to be creative. I think we have to go back to what were we taught in WSI class years ago, right? Where they would say, like, keep the fun in fundamentals. Right? Look at your lesson plan. What's your intro? Like what game you're going to play at the beginning to get the kids ready to get wet. Then what are you going to review? What's your new skill that you're going to work in? And you can structure your in-services in much the same way. So what's your little fun activity? Like if you go online, there are a ton of different resources that you can get for in-services. There are like Facebook groups that talk about in-services. And like, I love some of these fun little, like, let's create things with popsicle sticks and let's do all these creative games in in-service. Like, I think that's fun, but we also have to meter and dose that fun, because at the end of the day, in-service is about changing behavior and getting your team to save a life, right? Or try at least. And if And if you're spending too much time on the fun part, to give everyone like the feels of working at your facility, well, in-service really isn't designed to do that. Like training in general has an element where you want to encourage team building. You want to encourage people to get to know each other. But in your in-service, I think we also have to focus in on, did we meet the objective? Like, did we save a life? What can we do differently down the road? So I would say have fun during your in-services, include a section of time that allows someone else to be the fun person. If that's not you in that moment, maybe your head guard, your lifeguarding instructors can lead the workout part. Maybe they can lead different stations, that you can take a lesson plan. We talked about your training calendar and having those individual lesson plans earlier. You can pass it off and say, all right, here's the main skill that we're working on. We're working on submerge victim. Like we noticed that our lifeguards couldn't get down 16 feet to the bottom of the pool, right? So that's the skill. Here's like some goals for physical skills that we want to do to lead up to that breath hold dive, so to speak. Make it your own, tweak it, like change the in-service template around and see if your team has ideas. If you involve them in leading and conducting it, that alleviates some of the burden of yourself. And then you can have more fun because now you're not the one doing all the work. You're letting your team members develop some leadership skill, some communication skill, and they're doing it for you. So go back, think about your in-services like those lesson plans. And really, I would strongly encourage everyone. You'll hear me say it time and time again. We don't in-service skills, right? Like, yeah, you practice skills, but your in-services should be full on scenario-based training where they're actually reliving or reenacting, if you will, scenarios that maybe you've experienced in the past or you're hoping to prevent in the future. Communications, working together as a team, those are the outcomes that you're going to see in the debrief process. But involve your team in finding a new way to do it. Let them create the fun if it can't be you.
Awesome.
Lydia, I'm drooling. Can I just say one thing to build on what Sean said? I'm drooling because you're talking about training right now. But look, I agree, involve everyone. One of the greatest things that I ever did training wise, and I think Jeanette's on here with the city of Bakersfield, was we spent a day before summer making sure that everybody taught everything the same way. So no matter what of the 5 pools or 4 pools you were at, everybody, all the management team taught this skill the same way. You didn't go from one place to the other and go, oh, when you involve them all and get them on the same page and check their skills, then you can do exactly what Sean's saying. You can parcel it all out because you know they're going to teach it right? And that's kind of critical. The only other thing I would say about training is, dang it, don't make training start like everyone sits down and you say you need to fill your timesheets out right. You need to clean up the guard room. You need to be on time. You need to wear your uniforms, pick up the kickboards after learn to swim. Don't talk to the parents between classes, and all the things you tell them 10 times a summer, once every week in training. We started being very intentional. We have a staff meeting at 9 o'clock and we talk about all the housekeeping and all the things that went wrong and everything. And then at 9:30, we start in-service training. And in-service training is not me talking to you about how to run the pool. It's like, put on the war paint, let's go get tough, push each other around, play hard, get tired, do skills when you're dead ass tired, and all the stuff that you need to do. So I really encourage you. They won't want to come to training if every time they come to training, you rag on them for 20 minutes about what they're doing wrong last week. So you have a meeting, you take a break, and then you get in the water and you play really hard.
Awesome. I love it. All right. Anyone else? All right. It's been awesome hearing from each of you. We did have a few questions that came in the chat. More than anything, it was, can we get some resources for auditing companies? So everybody who is on the call, we are going to put together a resource page with links and contact information for auditing companies. Also, I believe, Stephanie, am I missing something?
I think Frank answered most of the questions
The
that
live
were
scan
directed
stuff?
to him. Yeah, live scan and then the TB test
Perfect.
waiver.
So no major questions unless anybody wants to unmute and ask these awesome panelists anything at this point. I'll give you the next 3 to 5 seconds to unmute and say, hey, yes.
Just real quick about the live scan. it was also a timing issue. Their person that did it retired. And that's when we took the opportunity to have a conversation with the administration of police and say, hey, you guys are having a hard time. Can we just get our person trained that can alleviate some of your burden? And so it was us coming to them and hey, we can make this easier for you if you get us through this training and agree to it. And so when we make appointments, we're going to go over to their facility and actually do the live scan. We're not going to have it here at City Hall.
We're getting questions about, can we get the list of 50 ways to say something from the WSI class? So if we can go ahead and get that sent to us too.
But do they still have? I probably got that. I'm not sure it's in the book anymore, is it, Frank?
And then the final one is, so where did the 4-hour in service
Okay,
develop?
so this is great. This is good stuff. So years ago, Ellis and Hunsucker sat down the same time they figured out what a compact jump was, what a rear rescue was, all the stuff that they brought into the water park industry. They determined that basically a good rule of thumb was that a lifeguard should get 1 hour of in-service for every 40 hours they work in a month. So if you're working full-time in the summer, you get 4 hours or an hour a week or 2 hours every 2 weeks or whatever. In the winter, you might be working 10 hours. You need an hour or two a month, right? And so depending upon how much you're engaged and how long you're in the chair kind of drove like how many hours. There was no standard. It was like the 10-20. They developed sitting in a wave pool in Houston. There was no standard for getting people. So now we say see them and get them. That evolved into see them, get them out. See them, get them out, get them care. And so it just continually evolves. But that came from two really smart guys saying, this is probably enough to keep your skills up.
Awesome.
And now to jump in on that, Jim, is now it's become codified, right? So now we're seeing states adopt that. Like it's a rule in Texas now. It's become part of ANSI standards that you've got pre-service and in-service training. So, you take a conversation from back in the day and now it is the standard of care. And we're encouraging the pool operators out there to really understand like the overall goal. We're talking about training. So we're talking about improving performance. There was one group that was talking just this past week about saying like, oh, you can just like it's 4 hours, but you can do that all at once, at the start of the month. And there's your 4 hours of training that month. Well, I mean, technically you met the training requirement, but did you meet the objective of like repeating a skill over time and working together? So I think that's on all of us to really take that standard and make it our own and really help our team understand and have fun with the why that Jim was talking about. Why do we do this? It's to make our communities safer. If they get the why we're in the business, hopefully that alone might save some lives.
And it's kind of time versus intake, right? Like time doesn't mean intake, right? Like you can spend all the time you want, but, and it was funny because practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect, right? And that's something kind of important to grasp. I think the last thing, Sean, you were talking about, you came back in and you talked about how it got codified. The 10-20 second protection rule, a water park in California was found negligent for a 4-year-old drowning in a wave pool with 870 people in it because they didn't get to the kid in 41. They took 41 seconds to get to the kid, which is actually incredible if you've ever jumped off a stand in a crowded wave pool. And so the 10-20 is now real. Every expert that ever comes to your pool and talks about a drowning is going to first say, well, let's do a timeline.
Okay, I love it. All right, you guys, this actually wraps up our first Drowning is Preventable speaker series. I want to say thank you so much to each and every single one of our panelists for joining us today. Always so insightful, and I love just having a discussion with no PowerPoint slides. I believe it was very good for all of our audience members to really just hear you. We recorded it, so we will be putting it in our YouTube channels. We're going to try and make sure that there's an audio put out there too, maybe a little podcast. You guys are going to be famous. That being said, I want to let everybody know it's not too late to register for Thursday's DIP speaker series. Just let you know who our next group of panelists are going to be on Thursday. We have Justin Semsprott. He is the creator of Lifeguards Without Borders, also the co-founder of the International Drowning Researchers Alliance, and also a doctor, chief medical officer. He's going to be talking to us along with Wes Long. Wes Long is the president of Starguard Elite, and Dan Brzezinski is the president of Premier Aquatic Services, providing different lifeguard services. through the private sector. And then lastly, Corey Hildebrand, the community services manager over in the city of Irvine. So we have a great panel, a group of panelists coming back on Thursday. We look forward to seeing everybody then. Again, you guys, thank you so much. Thank you for being a part of this. And I hope you guys enjoy your Memorial Day. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
guys.